We only have one viewer, and that was on Facebook.
That's okay.
So, yeah.
Somebody has to be that guy.
Somebody's got to be that guy. And thank you. You know?
Exactly.
Hey,
What's up?
is everybody's good though, right? I don't see any
we're good.
messages.
Shit. No, we're not good. I just had a major malfunction.
Well,
Uh-oh.
okay.
I'll be back.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
This was a major malfunction. This was a major.
That's a major malfunction. I saw earbuds went flying, and he vacated his post pretty quickly there.
Yeah, it's not good. I don't
That's
know
not
what just
good.
happened.
I hope he didn't spill a bunch of water like you did.
I spilled it on the way down here. I didn't spill it on anything by my paper. The paper I was going to write on was the big. See, it's all wet. So,
yeah, moist.
I got more paper down here.
Okay.
Not good. Half gone.
Yeah.
What happened?
Yep.
What happened?
Yeah.
Half
Yeah.
gone.
That's it. He did it.
He lost his copy.
It happened. I didn't want to say it. I said, hopefully it's not what happened to you. And it was, but not on the way down there. It happened live. Yeah. So right now we got some all right weather. The sky looks a little gray, kind of gloomy, but, I got out while the getting was good.
Did you guys drive down? You drove down. Yeah, yesterday.
Well,
okay.
No, I rode, but yeah, we drove. Yeah, we drove.
Yes.
Yeah, it was kind of nice. I don't typically do that with company. It's usually just me and myself, and it's kind of boring. It's just good to break it up and chit chat. Small talk. Yeah. So there I was. I think he's got a big problem back there. I think he's checking, electrical connections.
I don't know. He's making sure. We're 12 minutes into this interview right now, and so far I haven't heard shit.
Well,
don't start talking yet because he needs to hear it.
I'm not saying a word. I'm saying words, but nothing.
You're saying words, but you're not saying any words.
That's a fact. And I do that a lot. And, it usually keeps a lot of people guessing because they don't really know what I'm saying.
Right.
And
that's okay. That's all right.
Yeah. And it's a way for me to establish control and dominance by acting like I just don't know.
Well, and there's nothing wrong with not knowing.
But I know. Artie's back.
Not knowing is
Sorry about
part
that.
of the. Okay,
That only
what
sucked
the hell
a lot.
just happened?
What happened?
Is everybody there still?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
So,
we were wondering if you were okay.
No, I just had a major malfunction. My camera fell and knocked over a 16-ounce, and I caught it halfway.
Oh, good.
Murphy's.
Oh, boy.
So I saved 8.
Yeah. I'm a Murphy's over Guinness any day, too. That's a good choice.
All right.
Good choice.
Yeah. Saved 8. That's nice.
All right.
That's good.
Sorry about that. That was an extra 3 to 5 minutes we didn't need to screw around with. But
it's all right. Let's go.
All right. Let's do this thing.
Let's go. Let's do this thing.
All right. Here we go. Oh, one more thing. So see if I can knock over another beer real quick. Because I haven't started drinking yet.
Quiet, numbskulls. We're broadcasting.
Right? I can only have one beer. I got to fly later. Just kidding. That was a joke, everybody.
I know.
I like it. It never gets old, though.
It never gets old.
It never gets old.
Oh, if you're not wasted, then the day is,
Right. All right.
I don't know.
Here we go. Into Woody's.
Okay, here we go.
I think
today's the 20th.
All day long.
March 25th.
That's March 25th. It's my dad's birthday.
Ooh, I like that sound.
Hey.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Quiet, numbskulls. I'm broadcasting.
This here is a true story about crossing the pond at night in the world's smallest cockpit on the tanker through the weather. Oh, and to the tanker crew who did that, thanks a lot. We really appreciated that. I'm just kidding. No, I'm not. Well, there I was, crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fond.
So there I was in Maron, Spain, one day, and I had a really bad sprained ankle. And we had been going back and forth at the beginning of Operations Iraqi and Enduring Freedom, flying from Spain down to Iraq, Spain down to Iraq. And the aircraft commander came up to the crew. I was a young loadmaster at the time, and he says, "We got two options. We can take 332,500 pounds of gas and fly direct back to Travis Air Force Base, or we can hit a tanker 2 times all the way across the United States and head over to Hawaii." And in unison, without skipping a beat, the entire crew looked at the aircraft commander and said, "Let's go to Hawaii." And so there I was.
And that is how all great aviation tales begin. Greetings, everybody. Repeat here, coming to you from home in New Hampshire this week. Here with my co-host, Fig. Are you home, Fig?
By the grace of God, I am at home, and what a way to open the "So There I Was" story.
Which episode number, Fig?
This is 100, baby.
100, baby.
Period. And it is my great pleasure to introduce our guest today, Woody. Hello, Woody.
Welcome, Woody.
Hi, everybody. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Oh, this is cool. Who'd ever thought we'd have got here from there?
100.
And yep, here we are.
I know.
100.
So,
this is cool.
Truth in Lending Clause. Woody is a personal friend that he didn't start out as a personal friend. Actually, I didn't like him much when I first met him. Well, I'm sure we'll get into that. So, speaking of get into that, there is quite a story here on how you got into aviation. But let's start with what piqued your aviation interest.
Yeah, where'd you start?
It goes back to, well, when I was a young kid. Grew up in Colorado Springs, and my dad actually was don't hold it against him, right? He was a helicopter pilot for the Army. Yeah, right. He was a prior enlisted guy, so he was an artillery mechanic in Vietnam, and then he met my mom. They got married. They had me, and then he went to warrant officer school. My mom was pregnant with me, and he came back and he flew Hueys right there in Fort Carson, and so I was pretty fortunate to kind of grow up like exposed to that right out of the gate. And when I started getting old enough, every once in a while he'd take me out to Butts Army Airfield, and he'd show me around the Hueys and the Chinooks on the flight line, and I was like, man, this is really cool. But he'd take me back into their ops office, and I found a way to sneak away, and I'd end up in the bigger part of the hangar where they had maybe a King Air or a Citation, and I'd just go crawling up on them. And my dad tells the story the best. He says, one day he remembers this maintenance guy brings in. He's like, "Whose little blonde-headed kid is this?" And my dad, he says, "Yeah, that's my boy." He says, "Well, I just caught him, sneaking on the King Air out in the hangar." And so as much as I love helicopters, I really knew that I loved airplanes. And so my dad kind of started that with just being able to take me out there. And my mom kind of furthered it by just, my dad would also fly Cobras, which he flew out in Korea. He went down to El Salvador with the Huey, did some stuff down there. But while, he was away, my mom I'd say, Mom, would you take me out to the airport? Like, nerd moment for a 5-year-old kid. Like, who doesn't want to be around airplanes? It was me.
Who doesn't?
Me. Yeah. So, my mom would take me out to the Colorado Springs airport, the old terminal. And you didn't need a boarding pass to get through security. So she'd walk me through security, and we'd sit there and, I would just, watch a TWA 727 pull up, or, maybe catch a couple T-37 tweets flying around, or maybe there was nothing there, but just to be at the airport was something. As a kid, I had every airplane book. I'd look at the sky. I could tell you what it was. And it just became kind of like a Rain Man thing for me, really.
Nice.
And it just grew, but that was the very beginning of it. Definitely happened from a dad that was involved in it and a mom that supported it. I was very fortunate to have those two key elements. Just kind of be like, well, if that's what you want to do, then go do it.
All right.
So that was kind of the beginning.
So I don't. So let's get to this part. You didn't become a pilot right away. So talk through that process, because there's some lessons to be learned here. Some life lessons, and also some inspiration. So talk us through. You got out of high school. Did you start college? Did you go into the air?
No,
you didn't do VFR direct to flight school.
No, absolutely not. Come on, are you kidding me?
Why? That's too damn easy.
It's fine. I started working at the age of 16. I bagged groceries, and I always wanted to. It was still airplanes, and even in like high school, the guys would be like, hey man, we're going up in the mountains. We've got beer that someone bought us. We're all underage, and we got girls, and we're going to go party. And I'm like, hey man, that's great. I got like a Coca-Cola and Microsoft Flight Simulator 98 or 95, whichever one it was at the time. And I'm going to fly a 737 from JFK to LA. Like, thank
Nerd.
you, but no, thank you.
Nerd.
Yeah, I know. Right. So anyway, that kind of was the deal, but nonetheless, I did run with some of those kids back in the day. So, there were a couple things that kind of happened, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to go live with my sister in Louisiana. They were down there in Fort Polk, and I went down there, and I worked for a contract company as a civilian on the battlefield. Well, that was cool, but I ended up getting a little trouble. And the best thing was the best thing was for me to just go back to Colorado. So I went back to Colorado.
Hold on a second. Wait, whoa.
Oh yeah.
Did I hear, you didn't say it expressly, but did I hear I had to leave the state of Louisiana for legal reasons?
Kind of, sort of, in a way.
All right. I'm not going to pry.
Hold on. I gotta say, I didn't know that was an option.
Right.
I would have left the state of Louisiana. Yeah, I had a choice.
I had a choice. Right.
I might have run into a legal issue or two myself at one point in time in Louisiana.
Trust me. It was a lawless land, and well, anyway, it was a simple possession charge of a controlled substance. It was a misdemeanor.
Right.
To this day.
The more you misdemeanor you get, is that
right? Anyway, so I get back to the house. And I look, and I had to go back to Louisiana to meet with the man, if you will, and I had applied for a job in the newspaper classifieds to be an airplane cleaner, and I was like, wow, this will be great. Well, I get down to Louisiana, I get a phone call from the guy at the airport. He says, hey, we want to bring you in for an interview. And I said, well, hey, I'm down in Louisiana, got to go through this real quick, and he's like, that's fine, call us when you get back. So I come back to Colorado, and I meet up with the guy, and I get a job for an older airline back at the time. And the job was, the overnight airplanes come in, you offload the bags, and then after that, you'd go up and you clean the airplane. So it was part-time, and I loved it. It was great because, once the pilots left, you climb up in the cockpit. I became brake ride qualified. So they had to start the APU to move the airplane off the gate. And that was like heaven for me. And so that was really cool.
Oh, yeah.
funny story. One night after, one of the guys that was training me, he says, Lamont, here's what you got to do. When we put the bags on the baggage claim, we open up the oversized door after we put a couple bags on so we can look at the people at the baggage claim. Maybe there's a cute girl out there or something. So I'm like, well, that's neat. So we put all the bags on the baggage claim and start the baggage claim. He opens up the oversized door. We throw a couple skis on, and I'm like, wow, look at all these people, And that night I was driving home, and I pulled up next to these two gals at a stoplight that I saw at the baggage claim, and I rolled down my window in this 1983 Ford Ranger, and I said, hey. She rolled down her windows. I said, I offloaded your bags. Nothing. Another nerd alert. Couldn't come up with anything otherwise other than that. So fast forward, I go become a supervisor at the Eagle County Regional Airport for the winters. And I had a great friend and mentor then at the time. And I was always talking to the pilots, as you'd see him, and I say, how'd you get to where you're at? How'd you get to where you're at? Some Air Force Academy, Naval Academy. I flew this, I flew that. And I'll never forget this one guy that I met on a 757-200. And he looks at me and he says, you know what? He says, I was a loadmaster. He says, I was prior enlisted. I did all my stuff on my own, and then I commissioned, and here I am. And I was like, huh. I was like, that's really neat. So I started looking into joining the Air Force, and I ended up talking to my mentor about that. And he says, you know what? He's like, I always wanted to fly. He said, but my eyesight was too bad. He says, I really wanted to be a boom operator. And I said, well, you know what? I mean, I'd sign up to be a boom operator in your honor. He was a really good friend of mine that taught me a lot, just some great life lessons growing up. And so I went and talked to a recruiter, and I was able to put 4 jobs down. And the first one I selected was to be a boom operator. The second one was to be a load master. The third one was airborne battle manager. And then the fourth was to be air traffic control. I told the recruiter, I said, I don't want to do anything unless you put me on an airplane.
Yeah. Right.
And so he said, okay, well, we'll put you down for a boom operator. And I said, well, all right, well, that sounds great. And so I joined the delayed entry program. I took the ASVAB. I did all that stuff and scored high enough to do either one of those jobs. And I remember getting the phone call from the recruiter's commander. And he says, Lamont Wood? I said, yeah. I said, well, he says, based off of your history in Louisiana. Yeah. Oh man, it comes back. He says, we don't feel that that's probably a good job for you to be a boom operator. I said, well, okay, sir. So then what? He says, but you could be a loadmaster. And I said, well, all right. I mean, that's still pretty great. Like, you're still going to give me the job that I wanted to do. So I enlisted, and shortly after I enlisted, September 11th happened while I was in training.
Wow.
And,
yeah.
Shit
got real fast, didn't it?
Shit got real fast.
Shit got real fast. All right.
And so I didn't, my first thoughts while I was at training was I didn't even know what had happened. There was a maintenance guy that comes in. There's 3 of us in class, and this maintenance guy comes in. He says, man, y'all ain't going to believe this. And down Altus Air Force Base, Oklahoma. He says, man, y'all ain't going to believe this. Man, like a Cessna and a 737 done ran into the World Trade Center. I was like, all right, man. I mean, I get maybe like a Cessna, but the 737 is like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Come on, man. And he's like, no, it's on the auditorium across the way. And we went over there and we saw that. And then we saw the second plane hit. And that, my first thought was they're going to pull us from training. They're going to give us an M16 and we're going to go to war. Now, mind you, I didn't join at 18 years old. I joined at 22. So after I graduated high school, I went to Louisiana. I came back and I did some odds and ends stuff. Just kind of farting around doing some fun things before I.
You were kind of an old man, so to speak.
I was
when you went through the basic training.
Oh yeah,
right.
And I was constantly reminded of that. by guys in the class that were like parent permission to get in, and
yeah, you were already legal age to drink,
right?
In all 50 states,
all 50 of them,
yeah,
every one of them.
Nice. The question is, did you? Had you yet?
Well, yeah.
Worked at it.
I dabbled. There was,
okay.
It was pretty cool. I met some great guys in the beginning before even Altus. It'd come into class. There were these 3 kids that sat on the other end of the table. This was the enlisted aircrew undergraduate course, and there was 3 guys that were from Wisconsin. And they'd all come in and they'd take their BDU top off and they'd sat there with their black shirts. And one of the guys, he was my age, and he was like the big bulldog with his little bulldog. And then another guy who later on you'll hear about, Getty, he was a 17-year-old parent permission guy. But those guys would sit over there and they looked so tough, but they weren't like, I couldn't stand any of them. And I sat with this other kid from Minnesota, and we'd sit there and look at those guys and say, those fucking Wisconsin guys, Anyway, so fast forward to Altus. Most of us ended up going to Altus because we were all ended up on C5s, with the exception of the Minneapolis guy. He went to C-130s, and so I'm thinking we're going to go to war, and they're like, no, you're going to go through training, and you're going to finish training, and we did. So come back to Travis. That's where we in process on the C5, and I mean it was incredible. But at the same time, that's all we did. You would leave Travis, we'd fly to Charleston, we'd pick up a load, we'd hit a tanker, we'd go to Spain, you'd go back and forth to Iraq, however many times it took, and then you'd fly back to Travis. You'd have, maybe 4 days off to do your laundry, or 2, mail your bills away, doing the postal stuff.
Yeah.
And then you go back to work. So, but nonetheless, I still knew I wanted to fly, and I had a great time and met some wonderful people along the way. And so there's some great stories later on about, some of those missions. But, I started taking some flying lessons while I was on active duty. And then I came back home and I joined the reserves, and I was a loadmaster on C-130s out there in Colorado Springs.
This is after your active duty stint was over, right?
That's right. 4 years.
So 4 years. Had you started taking online college courses or anything?
Still hadn't been to college yet. Hadn't been to college. Okay. So when I get out.
So now you're like 48, it seems like.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
There you go. So and you mentioned also, as long as we're interrupted, I want to stop here too and mention, you said BDU. So that the Army calls, and the Air Guard calls that the battle dress uniform, which is the camouflage utility.
Okay. Right. Good job. Good job, Repeat. Yeah, that went right on my bald head, man. All right.
Low drag. So I started flying the 130 and still hadn't started. There was a couple of really good people that had joined the unit right around the same time I did, and we all became very good friends. A couple flight engineers, and I met some really great loadmasters, and we went on a couple deployments to the Middle East, which was new to me because we didn't do that in the C5, and then a couple of us said, you know what? I mean, we have the opportunity right now, and this unit didn't know about this active duty, but we can go to school, get our degrees, and they'll hire us and we go fly C-130s.
Nice.
Is that me?
So that was cool. So we all started going to college.
Glitch here.
Okay.
Hang on a second. Sorry. So Fig, you have frozen up, but we can hear you. If you can hear us,
I'm back.
Okay.
I
don't know what all that was about.
Your video is frozen. So Woody, if you'll keep going, I'll see if I can remove and re-add Fig. Maybe that'll help. You may have to punch out and re-punch in.
Well, here, I'll just punch out and come back, man.
All right.
Okay.
Sounds good.
No big deal.
So
I just kept going, and we started going to college. And we went to the old Embry-Riddle distance learning campus, where I did most of my homework in the back of a C-130. And, I'd land, connect to the Wi-Fi, and submit my assignments. And that was my college experience for the most part. Going TDY and, still working, getting paid, and using my GI Bill to go to school. And then so another buddy and I, we worked pretty aggressively to go get our private pilot's license. And and finish that. And so we did. And so now everything was kind of starting to come together. Do we need a wafer, Fig?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Let's see. Let me see if I can pause recording. I thought I could. I can't seem to pause the recording on this option, but let me do that. No. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Here he comes. I hear him coming back now.
So I thought, can you guys not hear me?
Yeah, we got you now.
Got you now.
All right.
So what you missed, I went to college. I got my private pilot's license. And, it was starting to get kind of tight on time, right? You had to, for the Air Force, you had to be 29 and a half. And by this point I was pushing right up to 28.
Okay.
And just a little over halfway done, but nonetheless, the squadron was like, well, when you guys are about a year out, let us know. And so I was about a year out. And then, the squadron then at the time was kind of like, well, I don't know if we can do that. One of my buddies, he was just about done. The other two of us were still waiting to finish up, but he was young enough. The guy that was almost done, he was young enough to not have to worry about it. And so then I said, well, I'm going to put all my eggs in one basket. So I went and rushed a guard unit up the street that flew F-16s. And now I'm getting kind of desperate, but, by my own fault, by not starting college or doing all this sooner, I'm coming up on the deadline for the age. So I go
and
up.
What is that deadline? And is it still in place?
Well, it's not.
Okay.
So at the original time of this evolution, which was circa 2009, 10 timeframe, was 29 and a half. You had to be in pilot training by your 29 and a half.
Okay.
And I was right about 28. And with about a year and a half left to go in school. So I'm grinding away, but I say, you know what, I'm gonna go up and talk to these guys here up in Denver and Buckley. And I went up there, I rushed, hung out with all those guys. That was great. And then, the squadron back in Colorado Springs was like, why are you going up there? Like, we need to start doing this now for you guys. So all three of us, interviewed right there with the unit in the Springs. And it was great because it was a lot of really good dudes, squadron commander, and they put us in one after the other. And at the end of that, they said, you know what, we're going to hire all three guys.
Nice.
So we continued, take the AFOQT, take the TBAS, still finishing up school. And then someone says, well, there's this blanket age waiver that the Air Force Reserve Command is going to put out up to the age of 33. So the other buddy of mine that was a little bit older, we hear that and we're like, well, this is great. And so we get our package, we send it, and then the package comes, it goes away, and it's crickets. It's dead silence. My one buddy, he's young enough, he didn't need an age waiver, so he gets his approval. And then my other buddy Ponch and myself, eventually the squadron commander says, hey, Woody, the OG's got some news. You should go talk to him. And I said, well, what do you got? He's like, I can't tell you, if it's good or bad, but just go talk to the OG. And I said, all right. So I already knew like it wasn't good. So I went to the OG.
Can you spell Louisiana?
Yeah, right. Well, that process was crossed too, because that was another waiver, that had to be in there. And so I talked to him and he says, Woody, he says, I just want you to know, he says, yeah, it didn't happen. It was denied by the 2-star at the AFRIC level. And I said, all right, and
AFRIC.
AFRIC, Air Force Reserve Command.
Thank you.
Yeah. So with that being said, fast forward to another story that, General Goldfein for the Air Force Command Chief Staff, when he had said once, he was like, my son wanted to be an F-16 pilot. I just tie this into this. And he says, it didn't happen. And he had to just take another vector. So that's what I did at that time. I took another vector. I said, well, here's the deal. I'll go get my own ratings and I'll focus on my enlisted career and go become a chief master sergeant. Like, that makes sense. That sounds perfectly great to me. And so I start doing that. I go to senior non-commissioned officer academy so I can make master sergeant, and I do that. And my then girlfriend, now wife at the time, there was a job opening that came up to teach at the Advanced Airlift Tactics Center in St. Joseph, Missouri. And I said, well, what do you think about this? She says, I don't care. She's like, your career is a little more important than mine. You should apply. She's like, I'll go with you wherever you go. And I'm like, what a girl. She's a keeper.
Right on.
Keeper.
Yeah, that's keeper right there.
So I apply and I get hired. And so early 2013, we move out towards Kansas City, Platte City. And that's about the time I met Fig. Was right around 2013. And
that's a fact.
I was the loadmaster instructor over at the schoolhouse. And very shortly after I had gotten there, the inbound commander, Otis, he shows up, and he's a great dude, former Air Force Special Operations Talon C-130 navigator, did a stint flying the C-160 Transall as a foreign exchange officer in Germany, which was super cool to hear that kind of story, which is a phenomenal airplane. If you know nothing about it, Google it and check that out. And so he shows up and he's like, hey, Woody, and he's very, feedback orientated. And, he's telling me, hey, man, you're doing a great job. And they kind of let me run as the enlisted guy at the schoolhouse. And Fig can probably attest to that. Like they just, I got to do what I wanted. I got to teach, create lesson plans, and they got to teach that to the people all over the globe that came out there to train, so that was really cool. And then I got a phone call from a friend of mine in Montana, and he calls me up one day and he says, Woody. I said, what's up? He says, we're looking to give age waivers for the state of Montana for navigators. And I said, man, that sounds really good. I said, however, let me sleep on it. I said, I think that sounds great. I was like, but I either want to fly the airplane or I want to load the airplane. I didn't want to be a flight engineer. I didn't want to be anything in between. And
not that there's anything wrong with those.
Nothing
things.
wrong with that.
This
Absolutely
is your
not.
personal choice at the time. Yeah,
holding on to that.
Right.
And so I sleep on it. I talked to my then girlfriend, now wife at the time. Then same girl, of course, and she's like, honey, just do whatever you want. Again, keeper. And so I go to Otis the next day. I said, hey, sir. I said, they're giving age waivers to navigators in the state of Montana. He says, Woody, you should hear what they're doing for pilots in the reserves right now. And I said, really? He says, why? Are you interested? I was like, yeah. I was like, I tried once before and it was denied. He says, well, get your shit together. And I said, okay. So I already had my package. I already had my testing. I had to go revisit a physical, and I did it, and I handed it to him, and he's like, okay. And so, being in St. Joe was largely centralized for, a lot of tactic stuff that came out in the Mobility Air Forces community. All these people would come out. We had a symposium. So you got to network a lot, but it also had some heavy hitters from the reserve components that would come out. It wasn't uncommon to have a 2-star or 3-star general out there to give a speech as a capstone speaker. Well, it just so happened that Otis knew a lot of those guys, and I was able to get FaceTime with these guys. And, as the package got sent through the wickets, Otis had said, here's the deal. We can make this work. Like we can get you the age waiver, but the conditions are this. Well, the biggest condition is it's not going to be for a unit of your choosing. You're not going back to Colorado Springs. Like you're going to go to an undermanned unit. So I had, I texted Ponch and said, hey man, I was like, the reserves are starting to do something here. And I kind of cued him in that. And one of the guys in his squadron came from Niagara Falls, which is this Flying Bison Brewing Company out in Niagara Falls. And he says, Niagara Falls is always hurting for people. And so I come back and I tell Otis, I say, hey, what about Niagara Falls? He says, get in touch with them. So, I mean, even though I had all this stuff, Bobby's, Otis still made me do all the work. So I call up to Niagara Falls and I start talking to him, and Ponch and I get all our package stuff together. We go to the board. We fly out there. We interview, and great unit. And I remember a lot of those guys from being deployed in 2005 and 6 with the Springs unit, and walking into the squadron in my blues and seeing all these guys. I'm like, I remember you, and so I had this nice spiral bound package with my my cover letter, my letters of rec, my resume, and we interviewed, and I felt it went really good. And then I was down in Fort Huachuca on one of the TAC Center training sorties down in Arizona, and I was hanging out with a crew from Reno. They were a lot of fun. That was the beauty of that job, is you just got to meet so many people from so many different places that I still talk to this day. Some even over in Belgium and Germany. It was neat. And as I was talking to this guy, my phone rings, and it's the hiring gal from Niagara Falls, and she says, Lieutenant Wood, or Master Sergeant Wood, then I'm sorry, at the time, she says, Master Sergeant Wood, she says, we met and we talked about your stuff, and we would love for you to come up to Niagara Falls. And I'm elated, I hang up the phone. I said, thank you, absolutely, this is super cool. I call my girlfriend, now wife at the time.
She's a keeper.
She's a keeper. And I call Otis, I tell him, and I call my buddy Ponch, and he says, man, he's like, I just got the same phone call. I was like, dude, this is incredible. Now, mind you, I guess at this time
I was going to ask,
30,
how old are you?
34. I'm
77
years old. 34 plus 77 minus a couple extras. So 34 is as my final answer. 34 years old. I get the call that says, hey, you're going to do this. And so the final steps were to, for Niagara Falls to make sure that the package goes through. And then there was the board. And then the package goes to the board, and then it's silence, of course. And I keep working, doing my thing. And my buddy Ponch calls me. He says, Woody. I said, what's up, man? He says, did you hear? And I say, hear what? He says, none of the packages from Niagara Falls made it to the board. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, they never left the base. They dropped the ball. They didn't get it. And I'm like, dude.
Great.
So I go straight to my boss. I don't know if you remember then at the time, Fig, skinny, yep. Big skinny. I go skinny.
Skinny was the call sign for this guy who was the opposite of skinny. As a matter of fact, he looked like a WWE wrestler with a shaved head. And he was not a small human. He was an NFL offensive tackle size, only he wasn't fat.
He's huge.
That's outstanding.
Yeah.
So
everybody called him skinny.
And I go to skinny.
It's like tiny.
Exactly. That's the thing. The nicknames that always coincide with the guys never make sense. Skinny, tiny, never. It's always the opposite of that.
Well, I wanted to ask about Otis. Was that the town drunk from Mayberry?
No.
Okay.
No. He was a heavy hitter, man. He was a heavy hitter in the community, for sure.
Okay.
I was extremely fortunate to have him around.
I can attest that Otis was a heavy hitter, big time, and he was a true leader in every sense of the term leader.
100%.
He got the best out of all his people, and he took care of them. Right.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Enough said on that.
Nice.
So Skinny, I go up to Skinny. I said, Skinny, my package didn't make it, man. Like, I'm not sticking around here at work today. Like, I'm going home. He's like, Woody, I get it, and I get in the car, I start driving home, and Otis calls me up and he says, Woody, what happened? I said, the package never made it. It never made it. It never left the base. And he's like, okay, well, let's see what we're going to do here. And that is exactly how Fig had stated. It was a great way to put it. He sprung into action. He didn't stand by idly and, ask me questions and say, well, better luck next time. No, he he started raising the flag and calling people. So then I went home and I sat, a couple days go by, and then next thing you know, I was kind of informed of like a supplemental board that was going to convene, basically for the 2 packages that didn't make it. And so it convened, and that board had then at that point selected that you were good to go. So that was huge. And I'm like, wow, this is really happening. Like I had no idea, this is a nerdy kid playing Microsoft 95, not going up into the mountains to hang out with the boys and the girls, is actually maybe getting a shot at this. And so he says, okay, well, it's good. But the package ended up getting held up by the command chief of the Air Force Reserve Command. It got all the way to his desk and it sat there. And Otis, at this point now, they had my orders cut to go to officer training school. I had a class date for officer training school, pilot training and whatnot, but it all hinged on several final signatures that had to happen. And so this is in the end of 2018. And Otis says, here's the deal. Here's what you're going to do, Woody. You're going to start driving towards Maxwell Air Force Base to either do one of 2 things. You're either going to in process officer training school, or you're going to give a capabilities briefing of what we do up in here in St. Joe to the C-130 unit down there at Maxwell Air Force Base. And it's like, wow, like that's a heavy hitter right there. So I tell my girlfriend, now wife, great lady, love her.
Keeper. She's keeper. Yeah.
And I said, honey, I was like, I'll tell you what, I'm going to be home in either 5 days and I'm going to be back in 5 weeks. And she says, I love you. And I'll see you later. And whatever you do, don't suck,
Yeah.
Right.
Don't fart,
right.
Whatever. So,
right.
So I get in the car and it's just solid rain. It's a sheet of rain all the way down to Tupelo, Mississippi. And I get into the hotel and it's tornado watch, whatever. And I'm like, I don't really care. There's an Outback right across the street. So I go over to the Outback and I get myself a beer, some prime rib and a shot of Jameson. And Bobby Otis texted me and he says, Woody, he says, still no update, man. Still waiting on this signature. And I'm like, God dang, are you kidding me? I'm like 2 hours outside of Maxwell. Like, what am I going to do tomorrow? Well, so
you're going to give a brief, bro.
I'm going to give a brief. That's it. Yeah. Like, I'm already at the worst case. I'm like, that's happened once. It's going to happen again. Like, I feel like I've got good karma, but maybe that thing in Louisiana, I don't know. This is all falling apart maybe.
Yeah.
And so the next morning I wake up and I text Otis and I say, hey, what do you got? He says, I got nothing, Woody. He's like, just keep driving. And I'm like, son of a gun. So I pack my shit, kind of hungover, and I'm driving down the road, and of course, distracted driving. Who texts and drive? I surf the internet and do all this other stuff. I'm riding down the road, and my old BlackBerry at the time, right? The BlackBerry starts blinking, and I look and I pick it up, and all I see is an email from Scooter. Who's at the tax school.
He's the operations officer at the unit he just left.
That's right.
Okay.
So he sends me an email with an attachment, and I'm just driving, and I open up the attachment, and it's a letter, and I see words, and I just skip to the bottom, and it says, good luck and congratulations on your flying career. And I was like, what? Wait a minute. And so now I'm like, I got to pull over and actually read this email. And as soon as I pull over, Otis calls me and he says, Woody, he's like, we got it done. Go to officer training school and in process. You're going to officer training school.
Nice.
Yeah.
And man, so I'm sitting off the side of the road and I'm just like, you got to be like,
that's surreal, right?
It's super surreal, totally surreal. So, I call I call my girlfriend, now wife. She's a keeper because we weren't married yet. You know what I mean? We're just going through all this stuff and
she's keeper.
And I'm like, I can't believe this is happening. So I'm elated. I'm beside myself, and I'm just calling people, and I'm just like, I can't believe this.
Hey, and this is like Monday, right? A Monday when you're supposed to in process.
Yeah, it was. I think this happened on Sunday. I Otis has the voicemail message that I called him when I finally got to the base. I believe it was a Sunday, and I get to the base. I do the obligatory, base exchange, shelf check, get a haircut, eat some Subway, and then I picked up a 12-pack of Coors and a half pint of Jameson, and I had to go to clothing sales and buy almost $1,200 worth of mesh dress and all this stuff that you don't get. And I called Otis and I said, hey man, I just want you to know I'm in my room, and he's got the message and he'll play it every once in a while. And I called my chief loadmaster back in Colorado Springs and just, gave him a big thank you because he was instrumental in a lot of, my enlisted career development. And then, I kind of got a little tuned up and, that was good.
How old were you that day when you walked on base for officer training?
That day I was 34. Yeah, I was 34. And so I showed up the next day to officer training school, and the in-processing commander of the 24 training squadron, I looked at him, I looked at his name tag, I saw his wings, and I immediately recognized him and knew who he was. And I didn't make any mention of it as I was in processing, but he was actually the aircraft commander on my Finney flight when I left the squadron back at Travis Air Force Base. And he didn't know it. And so we just got to talking a little bit. And anyway, so I next thing you know, all right, OT, officer trainee, start going across this field and go over there and do your thing. So I just remember schlepping these 2 big ass bags, walking across this field like, God dang, I feel like I drank a fucking 12-pack of Coors and a half pint of Jameson last night.
So let's just recap. You were showing up to either A, give a C-130 capabilities briefing, or B, start officer training.
That's a fact.
And you didn't know which way it was going to go when you left the house.
Not until that day before. I had no idea.
So Sticks put a little message across the screen here a few minutes ago, and I can't argue with that. But for anybody listening, what would you say? What would you say to them if somebody is struggling to keep motivated towards a goal? What would you say was the key to you never giving up?
I would say that I would say realistically 2 things. Like, it takes a village, first of all. Insulate yourself with the people that understand, but more importantly, know you, and keep those people close. Because
including your girlfriend, now wife,
including my girlfriend, now wife, because she's a keeper. Because those, and Otis and Fig, I can give you a laundry list of people that I keep close to me because they're great people, but they know me, and that is a very, very big thing. Like, there's a lot of negativity out there. There's always someone that's against you. There's always it's just the way it is. That's life. Yeah. And then the second part of that is just, never let it go, because when you let it go, the people that love you and know you, that's the first part of that piece, is that they're always going to be there to support you. But the support for yourself is never letting go what it is that you want to do. And accept those challenges, because that's the defining moments for yourself, and never be shy to talk to someone or learn something, because that's it. If you live in maybe a shell, or you're kind of introverted and maybe you're not the outward loud person, like that's okay. But leave no stone unturned. And however that
I love that
translates is
I love
that big deal.
I think Fig actually gave away the answer in the question too. It's like never give up.
Never give it up.
How many times they tell you no, keep going until you're past the age when they can't say yes.
And that's it. Like,
and even then you still made it, from 29 and a half, you were 34 when you started. That's awesome.
You were basically old as fuck, dude.
I was.
Yeah.
And then I went to pilot training. And I
all these 22-year-olds at OTS, that must have sucked.
Yeah, it was a mess, man. It was like basic training for grown-ups. I had this tech sergeant Yee, man. He was a drill instructor, and he rode my ass so hard, and he knew it. He's like, OT Wood. Oh, you think because you're a master sergeant? And he knew my history. He knew everything, and he rode my shit so hard.
Yeah.
But he was great. I'm friends with him to this day. And at the end, it was really cool. And I met some good people. And so fast forward to maybe a week before graduation, I see that lieutenant colonel that was on my Finney flight at Travis, and the inbound Air University commander was at the same time this lieutenant colonel was on the Finney flight, was the squadron commander back at Travis. And so I had my girlfriend, now wife, she's keeper. At the time, I said, I need you to go into my photo albums, because I carried photo albums from all the times back at Travis. I need you to find this picture. She finds the picture of Lieutenant Colonel Finney flight, and she sends me the picture, and I say, hey sir, I said, I just want to show you this picture. And he looks at it and he's like, I thought I remembered you. And I said, yes sir. And he's like, well, you know who the inbound Air University commander is? I says, yeah. He says, this is squadron commander. And so I graduate, we come walking across the stage, which was that was an incredible feeling in its own, because it just is.
Talk about coming full circle. Right?
Forget it.
People right there.
Forget it. So Getty, one of my really good friends, and he was there, and next thing you know, I hear this, Lieutenant Wood. And I turn around, and there's we'll call him Gimme. Gimme shows up, and he was the squadron commander. He's now 1-star general with Lieutenant Colonel A on the other side, and he was the aircraft commander, and
how great is that?
It was fantastic, man. And a long story, quick one. I'll make it really quick, because I don't know how this really goes, and I know I've been blabbing a bunch, and
I got a lot of questions for you, dude.
Yeah, we do.
Okay, I'll get you this one little part, because this is great. So back at Travis, I dabbled. I did a little stand-up comedy at a comedy club downtown called Pepper Bellies. And so I did that for a little bit, and then we had this squadron holiday gathering, is what they called it. They didn't want to call it a Christmas party, because it was a holiday gathering.
Sure, yeah.
And they said they had me and a flight engineer, and said, hey, would you guys MC this? And I said, yeah, sure, I'll do that. So we MC it, and the party's kind of dry. And finally, I said, all right, I'm gonna just do a little stand-up comedy. So I do some stand-up comedy, and the OG's there, the operations group commander, all these people, and 90% of the people are laughing really heavy about this. And I get done, and I was like, man, that was really good. And I go outside and I smoke a cigarette. All the bosses are standing out there. Gimme is the squadron commander out there, the DO, the ADO, they're all standing outside, and they come up to me, and they're all smoking cigars, And they said, Woody, I said, yeah, there's like your comedy routine was good. It was funny, but it was not appropriate for tonight. And they said, well, shucks, I'm sorry. They're like, you're still a beeliner, but we need you to come into the squadron in the morning and send a massive apology email. So I show up, and I send this apology email, and my buddy Getty standing behind me. He's like, Woody, he's like, never admit guilt. They separate us. They pulled him over to the other room. And it ended up just turning into be a really funny thing. So that night after that party, my buddy Getty calls Gimme at home, and says, "Hey, why you bringing Woody?" And he calls the squadron commander at home at 2:00 in the morning and says, "Why are you getting Woody in trouble?" And so anyway, so that was the same guy, and Getty was there, and we all got to rehack that moment when I graduated OTS. So.
Oh man, I got a question for you about that. What was it like? And I'm going to use a pejorative here. None of you lieutenants write to me. What was it like when you got that demotion from master sergeant to second lieutenant? Okay, technically not a demotion, but there's you carry significantly more cred as a master sergeant than as a second lieutenant. So what was that like?
Dude, he did carry cred. He was a master sergeant instructor at the Advanced Airlift Tactics Training School, which is where I met him. And my first impression was, who the hell does this guy think he is? And I thought eventually I'm going to have to put this guy in his place and dress him down a little bit. But to be honest with you, I could never do it because every time I had
because he walked the walk, huh?
He walked the walk, dude. He was the real fucking deal, and that's what impressed me the most about Woody.
Nice.
Yeah,
I thought he was full of shit. And when I first met him, I really did. I thought he was full of shit, and I thought I'm going to get a chance to bust his little full of shit bubble and knock him right down. And no, as a matter of fact, I never did. As a matter of fact, he taught me things. So.
Shit.
There you go. So he had the cred, and now you're a second lieutenant, a know-nothing 90-day wonder, as they say. You know.
30. He's the oldest second lieutenant in the Air Force.
That's right. You know, it was a pain. I mean, but at the same time, you know, it was just, I felt like a lot of these other kids, you know, there was maybe a couple other prior enlisted guys, but they were like senior airmen or whatever. And
they weren't 34 years old.
They weren't 34 years old. They hadn't been around for, 14 plus years yet. So
they weren't combat veteran yet. They hadn't been to war. They hadn't been around the world.
Nope. But they ask questions and they,
So I guess I go back to my question then was essentially, what was that like having to, I guess, demonstrate that you had credibility, even though you're, again, lieutenants don't write to me, even though you're just a second lieutenant,
right?
Clearly with 14 years experience, not many second lieutenants have that. And so you're kind of dismissed early on, I think, at first glance by most of those with whom you're around.
Yeah. I think part of it was just, again, I think it kind of goes back to just like having talking to people. Right. And I think that, I was easily dismissed. And I mean, even in pilot training, there were some challenges with some guys or gals that were second lieutenants that were like, I don't really care that you're 14-year master sergeant or whatever. But what I knew what it meant to me, and again, that kind of keeping your friends close and the people that know you, it meant a lot. And but yeah, I mean, it kind of sucked, man. I mean, it went from like, being able to be like, oh, cool, yeah, I can tell you what to do, to be like, no, I got to sit here and listen. Like I'm getting yelled at, like it's basic training all over again.
Yeah.
But the overall experience, I had a really good time, just because I was just so happy to be there. You know what I mean? That right. It was just like,
fair enough.
I didn't really care. I didn't really care how bad of a person or how shitty the situation was. Like I was like, I'm not supposed to be here right now.
Okay. Nice. Yeah, that's true. Part. Fair enough. So yeah, there's some gratitude to be there.
Sure.
I get that. So, all right. Well, I'll tell you what, let's take a quick break to thank Factor, who has helped get these first 100 shows to all of you, in addition to thank you to all of you who are Patreon and direct donors on our website at sotherewas.us. I still can't believe we're here at 100. So we're going to take about a 2.5-minute break.
Dude.
Hear from Factor, and then come back and talk about Spain to Hawaii, Gilliam and butterscotch, and some other fun stuff like that, it sounds like. So we'll be Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking from the kitchen. So there I was, preparing for another bland mealtime journey when I realized it doesn't have to be this way. Buckle up, because we're about to elevate your dining experience with Factor's delicious, ready-to-eat meals. Whether you're cruising at mealtime altitude or just making a short hop from the couch to the kitchen, these chef-crafted, dietitian-approved delights are ready to go in just 2 minutes. That's quicker than a pilot's witty reply to air traffic control. So there I was, thinking it was just another microwave dinner. But then, boom, out comes a gourmet meal that's ready faster than a clearance for takeoff. With over 35 options every week, including Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Yes, folks, Keto. There's a culinary co-pilot for every type of eater. My first officer, the one and only daughter of mine, has already charted her course through the keto skies. She's hitting those macros like a seasoned pilot. So there I was, fantasizing about breakfast at 20,000 feet. Well, with Factor, it's no longer just a daydream. Pancakes at cruising altitude, smoothies back in the hangar, and more midday bites than autopilot options. And guess what? No prep, no mess. It's like having a cabin crew right in your pantry. So there I was, juggling schedules when Factor flew in to save the day. Choose your meals every week and adjust your deliveries quicker than an in-flight turnaround. In the aerial duel of takeout versus Factor, Factor is the undisputed cockpit king. Luxurious, nutritious, and surprisingly wallet-friendly. So there I was, about to offer you an exclusive deal. Fasten your seatbelts for this one. Head over to factormeals.com/SoThereIWas50 and use the code SoThereIWas50 to get 50% off. That's right, 50% off with the code SoThereIWas50 at factormeals.com/SoThereIWas50. On behalf of the entire crew at Factor Airways, we thank you for choosing us for your mealtime journey. Please return your taste buds to their upright position, and as always, so there I was, making mealtime easy and delicious, thanks to Factor. So
He's
there
back.
I was.
He's
Had a little fun with that. Yeah. And Woody came back, too. Can you believe it? That's awesome. Thanks for coming back.
I had even money. You weren't going to show back up, bro.
I thought about it for a second.
He's had enough of this. So
no, this is great. This is super cool, you guys.
Yeah.
So, hey, Woody, I am so happy right now because I'm still learning shit from you. All right, so I got what before. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Before we go on, Ponch. First of all, how do you get the call sign Ponch?
Well, his last name was Estrada.
And, shit, that makes sense. All right,
that's too easy.
Yeah, it was too easy, but. Ponch is, there's a lot of guys that have shared this journey, and Ponch is one that he was the other guy that we were too old to do this, and it happened for him. So out of our group, Ponch and I were the same age. Yeah. But that's why that's his call sign. That's why.
Nice. Could have been Chip,
Right. No.
But yeah, so you opened the show with a tease going from Europe to Travis or Europe to Hawaii. Gee, which of these do I want to do?
Was it Europe? Oh, Spain. Yeah, you were in Spain.
Yeah.
Spain.
We're in Morón, Spain.
Yeah. We're in Morón, Spain. So there I was. And we're in Morón, Spain. And so like I was saying, most of the trips started with you left Travis, you'd pick up a load somewhere in Charleston or whatever, you'd hit a tanker, and then you'd end up in a stage. And the stage was either in Morón or Rota. And and how that would happen is you would show up and you'd go to the bottom of the list. And all the other crews that were there, as airplanes would come in, they would go out. And so they would either put you in a Charlie, which a Charlie was like you had 2 hours to enter crew rest. So you had 2 hours before you went into your 12 hours crew rest, or you were in a Bravo. And the Bravo they had changed because after September 11th and all that, it was normally a 48-hour requirement, but they made 5-day Bravos, so they changed it to 5 days.
And this was an alert status, right?
That's
Bravo
correct.
Alert status, Charlie
Bravo
alert status.
Alert, Charlie. Okay. Yeah, exactly. And so great crew. And we do the Charleston, we do the AR, and we end up in Rhoda the first time. We went into Rhoda, and we get into Rhoda, and there's not a lot of stuff open because we get in super late. And of course, the C5 cruise, we like to party, and there was one place right outside the front gate that was called the Zigzag. And
I can't. I'm sorry to say I'm familiar.
Have you ever been to Marone or Rhoda there, Fig? Were you been there around the parts?
Rhoda, yes.
Yeah. So if you remember the Zigzag, or if you've heard about it, you know about the Zigzag. It's open early, like open late, open early kind of deal. So it's like,
I don't think it ever closes, Woody.
I don't think it really does either. Nice. and we decided to establish that because it was like 2:00 in the morning or something. And said, well, let's go to the Zigzag. And we go to the Zigzag, and the Zigzag is open. It is open wide. And the two pilots and I, one I'll call the Dude, and the other one I'll just call Foxtrot Tango, and myself. None of the enlisted wanted to come hang out. Just me and the pilots, and we end up at the Zigzag, and there's nobody in there, but the music is loud as if the place is packed, and we're doing our stuff. Well, the Dude he's a great guy, but the Dude is pretty funny. Like, he's notorious for being able to do the worm,
Okay.
At a dance club. And so the Dude does the dance, he does the worm. And I'm like, man, he's really good at that. And I go try and do the Kid and Play, like, hold one ankle, jump through it, if you remember the movie Kid and Play. Yeah. And as I jump up to try and get my foot through, it doesn't work out so good. And I catch the back of my calf and I face plant. And immediately my ankle, I just start sweating, and my ankle swells up to the size of like a grapefruit.
Oh boy.
And I'm like, oh boy, this isn't so good. So we get back finally. There was another guy, Patty. Patty's with us. Patty, I'm going back to lodging. Then we go back to lodging and go to midnight chow, get some food, and then end up back at the hotel. And the next morning I wake up and I'm like, oh boy. I'm like, I can hardly walk. I can barely put my boot on. And I call the AC, Fighting T. I say, hey, I just want you to know, man, where are we at on the stage? He's like, well, Woody, he's like, I think we're going to be off today. He's like, do the RICE, rest, ice, compression, elevation. I'm like, yeah, I'll do that. And okay. He's a great dude. And so I'm sitting there kind of just limping around my room, and I'm in Spain, and there was a gal that I had knew in Spain, not my wife, not my girlfriend.
Not a keeper.
Either. Not a keeper.
She wasn't a keeper.
But she was nice to talk to every once in a while. So
sure, yeah.
She was up in Marone.
Spanish girl?
Yeah, no. Air Force gal. Okay. And I just happened to call her up. I said, hey, what are the chances you're down in Rhoda? And she says, you know what? She says, I'm down here for Airman Leadership School. And I said, really? She says, yeah. I said, what room are you in? She's like, I'm over here. And I stomp on the floor with my good foot. And she's like, yeah, you're right above me. And so she comes up and we start talking, and she's like, what are you doing tonight? And I was like, I can hardly walk. She's like, all you got to do is walk down to the taxi, walk into the bar, and hang out. And I was like, okay, fine. And so she
talked me into it.
So I go and I hang out, making great decisions. Anyway, we come back to the hotel. The rest is unmentionable, but you get the point.
Yeah.
And so the next day, Fighting Tom calls me up and he says, hey, Woody, he's like, we got a mission. How you feeling? You doing all right? I say, yeah, I'm good. I can get the boot on. I'm making it all right. And he's like, okay. So we had to go down to Iraq. We go down to Iraq, and we do our thing, and then we come back. And at the time, the C5, we didn't have any tactics. Like, we weren't doing low level ingresses. Like, it was a big dumb airplane. You know what I mean? And so the tactics were evolving with that. And so anyway, we do our thing. We end up back in Marone this time, which was the direction to end up going home. And that was so there I was. So, Fighting Tom says, all right, crew, we have two options: 332,500 pounds of gas, go back to Travis, or double AR and go to Hickam. And without skipping a beat, everybody says, let's go to Hickam. And baby. So we're like, Hickam, of course. We haven't been there. We've been back and forth to Spain and Iraq. That's it. Like, and Travis was the gateway to the Pacific. So that's all you did back before all of this. You do Anchorage, down to Osan, Kadena, Yokota, whatever, Guam, Hawaii. And like, it was great. But I never got to do any of that. And so I'm like, of course, let's go to Hawaii. And
who would want to go to? Hey, who would want to go to Hawaii?
In the middle of all that? Are you kidding me?
Right.
So we take off. It's late, and we fly all the way to Hawaii. 19.2 hours. We get gas somewhere over Boston.
That's insane.
It's insane. Like, as a loadmaster, I started out like eventually going into the bunk, like I'd lay down with my flight suit on and my boots on. Then the boots came off. Then the patches came off, and everything came out of my pockets. And then before you knew it, now I'm sleeping in my underwear and my t-shirt. Like, that's it.
Right. You got to get some rest, bro.
Yeah. So I'm cozy, and we take off, and I go into the bunk, I lay down, I wake up like 2 hours later, and I'm like, how much longer do we got? I'm like, it's 17 more hours.
No.
I'm like, now what do I do?
Now what?
So I make some put some chicken in the oven, make some chicken burritos, and I eat lunch.
Are you listening to this repeat?
Yeah. Here's my advice to you for a flight like this: eat till you're sleepy, sleep till you're hungry. Repeat.
I know it.
Spoken from a true long haul professional. Right?
Oh yeah.
So then I eat, and I'm like, well, now how much time we got? 16 hours. That took an hour. So I might have found a way to get some nicotine down, and that took an hour. It's still 50. So I mean, you get the point.
Yeah.
And so
long haul is brutal.
Yeah.
It's brutal. So 19.2 hours. We land in Hickam. And we had a flight engineer who gave him a flight engineer check ride on the way over. And the loadmaster, the loadmaster that I'm flying with, he's the chief loadmaster, who's an ex-Marine.
No such thing as an ex-Marine, Woody. Come on.
Oh, you're right. You're 100% right, and I just wanted to make sure you catch that. And I knew you would.
Yeah. It never gets old.
And so we land in Hickam. We get to the hotel. We're staying right there on Waikiki Beach. And at the time, if you walked right up the main drag from the hotel, you'd end up at this little bar called the Red Lion. And you walk downstairs into the Red Lion, is just littered with $100 or not $100 dollar bills everywhere, but there literally was thousands of dollars on the walls of this place. And pilots, engineers, myself, the other loadmasters, they didn't come out. We go in and we're hanging out, drinking some beers, celebrating the engineer getting qualified on his check ride.
His check ride, yeah.
Passing his check ride, and then it's like, all right, cool. Well, the engineers leave, and we're like, all right, well, let's start going out. And so the three pilots and I, we come out, and we're standing out in the front of the Red Lion, and there's a couple of young military guys. I don't know what service they were, and they started kind of talking a little poo-poo to us, and we started talking a little poo-poo back. And next thing you know, I end up in a tussle with one of the guys in the middle of the street. And why we call him Fighting T was because, so mind you, I have one sprained ankle right now. Right. Like my ankle, like I'm dancing around in the street like I'm like Evander Holyfield. Are you kidding me? Oh, I was
going to ask about the ankle situation.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was bad. But I go dancing with this guy a little bit, and we go a little blow for blow, and next thing you know, I sprained my other ankle, as it would be. So he goes kind of shuffling.
I picture the knight on his stumps from the Holy Grail. Come back
after 19.2 hours of flying. You know what those are. You don't even know where you're at. You're just like, all right, this is great, you know. And so then he goes around, and then Fighting T is standing off with this guy, and I'm just like, oh boy, this isn't good. And then the other pilots get in the brawl with this guy, and I'm like, man, this is really not good. And well, the Fighting T just clocks this guy out of nowhere with the left, and then that was it. We all scattered, and then we all go back to the hotel, and we get back to the hotel.
Oh, hold on a second. Are you got, arms over dude's shoulders? Are you able to walk? You got 2 sprained ankles. How did you?
I'm walking. I'm all adrenaline, man.
All right.
I am so like, I'm just amped. Like, I'm like, let's go. Well, one of the guys, he had a little bit of a split on his eye, probably needed a stitch or two. So they go to the hospital. And then, the next morning they called me up. I said, Woody, where are you at? I said, I'm in my room. What are you guys doing? They're like, well, we just made it back from the hotel, or from the hospital. And I said, okay, we're back at the hotel. And I said, okay, well, let me come up and see what's going on. And so that was it. And so we got in this massive bar brawl, and one of the guys on the crew had to wear these big, ridiculous 70s sunglasses, and we made it. Somehow we made it, and everything was good. And so the dude was a great guy. We ended up staying one other night, just because of the way it shaped out. And then we went home, and I looked at the chief loadmaster, who was in the back of the bus when we were on our way out to get to the airplane and go home. I said, hey, sir, I said, I kind of busted my ankles. Like, I'm going to go home and go to NIF, duties not to include flying. Like, I need to go see the doc. My ankles are messed up, and, we got into a little brawl with some people last night, and I'll give credit to the Marines on this one. He looked at me and he says, Woody, he said, God dang it. He said, I love fighting. I wish I was fucking there. I'd whoop someone's ass. He's like, you ain't in any trouble. He's like, get home and go to the flight doc. And I was like, well, this is great. Because I thought I was going to be in trouble. And he's like, I would have whooped someone's ass. And it was really fun. Nonetheless, we flew back to Travis, and I went to the NIF for my ankles. But 19.2 hours later, we decided it was going to be a good idea to get into a little tussle.
That's wrong. That's wrong in so many ways.
Because hobbling to the cab on one leg was not enough.
No, that wasn't enough. Why not sprain the other one and get into a brawl in the middle of the streets in Hawaii, right?
All right, I got to ask you a question about flight training.
Okay.
Air Force flight training. Did you ever have a flight training where you thought, well, okay, this was it. This is it. I've made a mistake, or I've screwed this up. This is going to be the last time I do this maneuver. It's okay if you have.
Yeah,
it's probably a good thing.
No. I have a couple. Realistically, one was my first Magoo sortie, which was like, so you had. I mean, the pilot training syllabus has changed so much right now. I couldn't even tell you.
Did you say Magoo?
That's right.
Cool. What the hell is that?
Yeah. What is that?
I don't. And maybe I'll look that up as to. I don't know why they were called Magoos, but you had the Pogo. The Pogo story, or the Pogo sortie, was pattern only. So you take a T6 out and you do pattern only. That's all you could do. The Magoo sortie was, you had, you opted yourself to a Magoo sortie because you had done the required maneuvers to opt you for that. And that was an area solo. So you got to go out to the MOA, the military operations area, by yourself. And so the first time I did a Magoo sortie was my first time going into like the advanced aerobatics portion, which wasn't anything too crazy, but it was Cuban 8s, Immelman, split S's, all that kind of stuff.
And what were you flying?
T6 Texan 2.
The T6 Texan 2. And so, I had just learned that day, like those maneuvers. I had read about them and I did them with the instructor. And then that automatically opted me into that Magoo sortie. So the second I ended up double turning. So after lunch, they said, Wood, you're going back up. And I said, okay. And they're like, you're going on a Magoo. And I was like, all right. And I go out and I'm out, I take off, I climb up, I got a low MOA, and
there you go. That's, right. That's a picture of it right there.
That's right. So I go ripping around, and I just hadn't had enough proficiency, having only been exposed to those maneuvers first thing in the morning.
Okay.
And so
now
I initiated more recoveries than I did. I initiated more nose high, nose low recoveries than I did a Cuban 8. I maybe did one Cuban 8 at the end, but I initiated some recoveries. And then my formation check ride, I started out in formation and fingertip in the T6, very, very tight and very good. And I think, I don't know what it was, probably just me. Towards the end of the formation phase, I don't know how it just kind of got into my head that I was like, what are we doing flying in this fingertip? So formation had its challenges for me in the fingertip. I could be at route, I could do extended trail, I could do that all day, but something about the fingertip and doing the wing overs and the wing work was...
That's an Air Force thing. Not to worry about it.
That's an Air Force
thing. And you know
Navy
what?
Marines, we got that figured out.
Yeah, because that's what we do. But you know what? I don't want you to feel bad, because the Dos Gringos have a song about that. It's called I'm Always Looking Right. And you know what? It's okay.
Yeah. So those were probably the two times in pilot training where I'm like, what how is this? But at the same time, like I was just I'm still just happy to be there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right. So,
yeah.
Did you say something about syrup or what? What? Like, I haven't seen his notes.
About what? Oh, well, they're in our joint thing there. I stuck it down in there, but yeah, it was after that was Gilliam and Butterscotch. Gilliam and Butterscotch, the Fabulous Four.
The Fabulous Four plus Gilliam. So, probably probably just kind of how you guys are. You've got nicknames, you've got stories, you've got, things.
The
Fabulous Four plus Gilliam. Let me tell you the characters first, because you got to kind of know the characters, and then so Getty, who's one of my best friends now.
All right, I remember that from earlier. I got that written.
That's right.
He was a C5 Loadmaster.
That's right. He was the 17-year-old, parents' permission, grew up in Wisconsin, didn't have a television set.
Okay.
So that was Getty. Gilliam. Well, let's get to Gilliam later. And then we had Tex, who's another buddy of mine. He's from Barbados.
Which is exactly why you would call him Tex.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Right. Well, the only reason we called him Tex was because he was the winner at Texas Hold'em. He played poker and he beat you every time.
Okay.
And then we had Mike, who we ended up calling Hoach.
Short for Ho Chi Minh, I'm assuming.
That's
100%. Was Mike Asian of some sort?
No, he wasn't. He was not at all.
He was a little commie.
Was he communist?
No, he was Hispanic, but Hoach just kind of stuck.
You fuckers were savage.
Beautiful.
So you had Hoach, myself, Woody, you had Tex, and then you had Getty, what we also would call Whiskey. And then Gilliam was just, he was just another guy in the squadron that he was the likes of us, but we never got to hang out with him that much. So Hoach and Getty flew a bunch together. Tex and I, Augie and I flew together a bunch. And, it was kind of like people that know you, like we talked about earlier, like those guys, those two knew each other. Augie and I knew each other, but we were very different people, but we always got along really well. I ended up being a roommate with Getty. And so it ended up just becoming like Getty came up with the idea. He's like, this is the Fabulous Four. Like, we're all the same people. And Gilliam, he's pretty close, but we just never fly with Gilliam. And he's just kind of back in the background, but he's the same guy too. And so it was the Fabulous Four plus Gilliam, and then the honoraries. And so the honoraries came, kind of later as guys that, would be part of this fraternal group in whatever way that we saw fit. And it was very tribal, but it was a great group of people. So at one point, we had the opportunity that we went up to the scheduler and we were able to get Getty, Hoach, and myself as the 3 loadmasters on a trip. And
so Rudy, when you say a trip, we're talking a multiple day.
We're talking a C5 14-day aerial refuel. Pick up, load in Charleston, aerial refuel out for the whole deal, the whole 9.
Right. So repeat. This is what you and I would have called back in the day a boondoggle.
Yeah,
this was a boondoggle. This is 100%. And so we take a 12-pack up to the scheduler and say, hey man, like, thank you. He's like, all right, I got you guys on it. You're good. And and so we leave. And our first stop is in Riverside, California. And
that wasn't a very long trip.
No, we get down there, and we had a kind of a standard issued uniform too, which is, so we had the Navy IDT shorts, like the Navy SEALs, like, the little shorts.
The shorty.
We had those.
Shorty.
We had the black shirt, and then you'd wear Adidas Sambas, like that was the standard issued operating equipment for the Fabulous Four. And so we get down to Riverside, and my buddy Getty, he looks at the aircraft commander. He says, boy, it's hot out here. He's like, you mind if I take my flight suit off? And he's like, no, I don't care. So Getty takes off his flight suit. He's got on his Daisy Dukes. He's got his IDT shorts. He's got on his shirt. And he puts on a bandana. And he's got on his flight boots. And he's like, it's hot, Woody.
He looked like one of the village. He literally looked like one of the village people.
So Hoach is sitting there and he's looking at him. He's like, well, that's fine. And I'm sitting there like, well, that's fine. And next thing you know, the Marine guys pull up with like, a big Hemet, big gas truck and whatnot. They look at him and they're like, who's loading this thing? And Getty comes walking up. He's like, yes, sir, I am. And boy, I tell you what, he loaded that damn.
He looked at him like he was one of the village people.
He loaded that damn airplane with all that stuff on. And so fast forward, we fly, we do our stuff. We end up eventually on our way into Spain. And the crew chief that we had, we call Butterscotch. And the only reason that we called him Butterscotch was because Getty had said this. He says he just looks kind of creamy. He's a little pasty, kind of pale. So we called him Butterscotch. And so the crew chief on the C5 would usually sit in the back in the aft flight deck. And they'd have 2-3 row seats that they could lay down and they could get comfortable. Well, so we kind of, day one, like the 3 of us together out of the Fabulous Four, like we were just people that, like, we would say stuff to you, but you really wouldn't know what we were saying. Like we were the kings of fucking with you, and so we were fucking with Butters pretty hard. And so we're like, okay, well, cool. So we ended up going in, and eventually we had to go down to Incirlik, Turkey, and we had to pick up some ordnance. And we go into Incirlik and we go park at the hot spot, and we're loading up this ordnance. Well, we had some time, so we get transportation to come pick us up, and Butters, Hoach, Getty, myself get in the van. And we go out to the BX and we get Burger King, and we all somehow at some point had to end up in the bathroom to just go, relieve ourselves. I come out, Getty comes out. And then at some point, Hoach comes out, and then Hoach, Getty, and I go outside to rip a heater and smoke cigarettes, and we start talking to this guy. He's like, "Oh yeah, where are you guys from?" And they're like, "Oh, we're from Castle Air Force Base." We're telling them that we're from a bunch of closed Air Force bases. He's like, "Oh yeah, I know Castle." And we're like, "You're such an idiot," but we're just messing with this guy, you know. And then we're sitting there and like, where'd Butters go? We don't know where Butters went. And so Getty and Hoach were like, "Woody, well, F him. Like, we're going to go back to the airplane." I'm like, "Hey, man," I was like, "we need to make a page for him or something, you know, like we need to find where he's at." And so I go into the passenger terminal, which is where the Burger King was. And I said, "Hey, could you make a page right now for Staff Sergeant Butterscotch?" And they do. They make a page. He doesn't come out.
Paging. Staff Sergeant Butterscotch.
They make another page. Nothing. And they're like, "Woody, we got to go. Like, we're taking off in an hour." And I'm like, "Dude, this isn't right. Like, this isn't right. We're leaving him here. I don't know if he's here. Maybe he went back. I don't know." So we get back. I'm like, "Fine." So we get in the van, and the van takes us back out to the jet, and we're at this hot spot, and the engineer's out front. We call him Angry Troll, so AT for short. He's standing out front, smoking a cigarette, reading his book. I say, "Hey," I said, "did you see Butters come back here?" He says, No, I hadn't seen him." I'm like, "Man, this isn't good." You know, pilots come out of the bunk. They're starting to do everything, start flipping switches, call for before starting engine checklist. And I'm like, "Hey," I was like, "Butters, our crew chief, is not here." And Hoach and Getty are sitting there laughing. They're like, "He'll never fucking be late again. We're going to fucking leave him." And I'm like, "This isn't right." I was like, "How about we take his bags and put his bags out?" And the aircraft commander's like, "Nope, we're starting up. We're leaving."
Taking
I was
your
like,
shit
"Man."
with us.
I was like, "This is fucked up, man. This is fucked up." So we start up all the motors. We start taxiing out. And right before the lineup checklist, I'm sitting at the aft flight deck, and Hoach and Getty are just chuckling this up. And next thing you know, outside of the boiler room is where the C5 environmental system was. So these big, massive packs. The boiler room door opens up, and out walks Butterscotch. And he says, "Hey, got you guys." And we're like, "Oh,
he's hiding from you fuckers the whole time."
He was hiding from us the whole time in the boiler room. And so we take off and run our way down to Kuwait, and we're on our way down into Kuwait. And Getty's
Payback's
like,
a bitch.
I can't clear my ears. And we land in Kuwait, and Getty's like, "I got to go see a flight doc, man. My ears are messed up. I can't clear my head." So Getty and I are walking around this tent city in Kuwait. We finally find a flight doc who hands him like a stick of Motrin and some Sudafed and said, "Yeah, just take these and you'll be fine."
Rub it.
Go to the hotel.
Rub some dirt in it. It'll be all right.
That's it. Rub some dirt in it. You'll be fine. So the next morning, we get the bus from the hotel to go out to the airplane. Well, Getty shows up. Mind you, cowboy kid from Wisconsin. He shows up. He's in civilian clothes. He's got cowboy boots, jeans on, cowboy hat, and his shirt on. And I said, "Getty," I said, "what are you doing?" He says, "Well, I'm the NIF, right? Duty's not to include flying." So he's like, "I'm a passenger, right?" And I'm like, we're in the middle of Kuwait.
No,
he shows up and says,
not.
"Yeah, but it's nonetheless," the aircraft commander looks at him. And that was the thing. That was the part of the Fabulous 4+ Gilliam. It's like, you would look at us and you're not going to win. You get nothing on us. Like, the aircraft commander looked at him. He's like, "I don't know if you're supposed to do that." And he's like, "Well, tell me where I can't." And he's like, I don't care at this point.
Just get on the bus. Get on the bus.
So we get on the airplane, and Butters is still sitting back there just chumming it up like he's the winner. And Getty grabs all these MREs, and he's getting out all the desserts because we didn't get box lunches. You know, it was wartime, whatever. So they gave us cases of MREs to go down to the desert. And he just starts eating all the desserts. He eats like 3 packs of Skittles, 4 pound cakes. And he's sitting there. He's like, "Woody," he's like, "I don't feel so good." I was like, "You just ate all the fucking desserts."
Yeah. And you're not going to crap for a month, by the way.
No. So we take off. And we lock Butters into the courier compartment. We lock him in there.
Nice.
And then
wait, hold on a second. Courier compartment, like secrets compartment?
Mm-mm. That's that aft flight deck portion I was talking about. You close the door.
Okay.
You lock them in
it. Okay.
In the meantime, I laid down, and Getty makes a chalk outline of a dead body laying down, and we taped off the flight deck. And the aircraft commander comes back to take a leak. He's like, "What the fuck are you guys doing?" And we're like, "Don't worry about it. Don't ask questions you don't want to worry about. Butters is locked up in the back where he belongs." So we end up in Spain again, and then we party, we do our thing, and then on the way back, now this was the 332,500 pounds of gas back to Travis. 13 and a half hour flight. And so we load up and we start flying back to Travis. And I said, you know what? I was like, I think we should get Butters back right now. So the crew chiefs carried this toolbox, just a quick, immediate toolbox to get into some stuff if they needed to. And so I set it down in the middle of the floor in the cargo compartment. And I put probably about 25 chains on it, probably about 15 straps on it, and just ratchet it down to the floor. And AT, the flight engineer, he's standing in the cargo compartment reading his book, smoking a cigarette. He's laughing. He puts a couple ties on the ratchet, and we land in Travis. And I wrote Butters a note that I said, "You might have won the battle in Sigonella." I was like, "But you will never win the war against the fabulous Ford plus Gilliam." And I put that note right underneath one of the chains on top of his toolbox. And we landed Travis, and Butters comes down and he's looking around. He's like, "Where the fuck is my toolbox?" I said, "I don't know. I want to look around." And he finds it. And boy, he got redder than a red hot in a bag. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And we made our point very clear. And that was probably one of the establishment points of the fabulous Ford plus Gilliam. In the meantime, I should rewind a little bit prior to that even happening. We were in Marone getting ready to go back to Travis that day, and we saw another C5, and we walked over to that airplane, and that was the airplane that Augie and he was on with Gilliam. So we walked up onto the airplane and we saw those guys. Hoach immediately goes to the oven because the oven's running, and he opens up the oven and there's like a tray full of taquitos. And so Hoach pulls out the taquitos, wraps them up in a napkin. He's like, "I'm going to eat some of these taquitos." And nonetheless, that was the fabulous Ford plus Gilliam. The whole group was on that airplane, and Hoach has this little napkin full of taquitos. And another little side story was one of the co-pilots on that airplane, he comes walking back while we're all sitting back there gallivanting around, and Hoach hands him his taquitos and said, "Hey," he's like, "You want a taquito?" He says, "No." He said, I got a couple in the oven." He says, "Okay." Hoach had literally pulled his taquitos out and offered him his own food. And there's a great picture. I'll find a way to get it to you. But that was the fabulous Ford plus Gilliam and butterscotch.
Now listen, you've been fucking rambling on about all kinds of shit, which has been great. Don't get me wrong.
I do that.
However, I don't know if you've lost track of time or not. We've been at this an hour and 3 minutes. You haven't. I see that. You haven't. Tell me a flying story. Tell me a flying story from flying C-130s, because that's what you're a pilot in.
That's what I'm a pilot in. Well,
pilot here, pilot there, pilot the C-130.
I happen to know you did a combat tour in the C-130.
I did. I sure did.
So do you have any stories from that first combat tour as a pilot? You've been in a lot of combat situations as a load
with you. God dang. So I had So I was very fortunate to obviously go to pilot training and do everything that I was able to do. I did some hurricane relief, and then I went on my first deployment with FIG. And I had I had high hopes and aspirations of just like, you know what, I'm going to get a job on base and try and get paid and do some stuff. And at the time, Fig was a squadron commander and I was his co-pilot. And I'll never forget being on the bus in Sigonella. No, it wasn't Sigonella. We were
Rhoda.
in Crete. No, yeah, it was. No.
Was it going or coming?
No, it was Suda. We were in Suda Bay on the way over. And we were in the bus on the way to the hotel. And Fig looks at me and he says, "Woody, so I hear you're applying to be a government scheduled employee over at the tax school." And I said, "Yeah." He says, "Why do you want to do that? Why do you want to do that? What do you want to do when you grow up?" I said, "I want to be an airline pilot." He's like, "You're not going to do it over there." And he's like, and by the way, he's like, "Why didn't you come talk to me about this?" And I'm like, "God dang it. He's right." And I'm like, "I don't know." I felt like a little kid. And nonetheless, we really got into some conversations and I withdrew my application and we started talking about, big picture overall in the future. And so I was like, well, this is good. This is good. I'm with the guy. And right now, like, I'm going to have a great opportunity to learn a lot of stuff. And so we get in and we in process and we do all this. I got to tell the blood. I'm not telling the blood shit story. You want a blood shit story? I'll tell you the blood shit story.
What is a blood shit?
Okay.
Yeah. What is a blood shit?
The blood shit. The blood shit's a little piece of some stuff that you get that, if you get a blood shit, which is essentially like if you got stuck somewhere, you'd hand someone a blood shit and they might give you it says, "Hey, I'll give you a goat if you turn in this guy and get him in the safe."
If you end up not in your aircraft and not in friendly territory, the blood shit, which was written in multiple languages, would say, "Hey, I'm a down airman. If you get me back to friendly territory, you'll be rewarded with whatever."
That's right.
Right. So they call it.
So our first combat mission, I remember we had a CNI dog from Savannah, and we take off and we're doing kind of this round robin through Iraq, and boy, I tell you, it got spicy, and we landed eventually in Baghdad, and I realized I don't know where my blood shit went. And so the blood shit went missing. And nonetheless,
which was a controlled item.
That was a controlled item. It got kind of written off at the end of the day. But here was the thing that was the best about always flying with Fig is I can arguably say that probably 70%. I'm no Chuck Yeager, but I'll say that right now, about 70% of why I'm okay is because of flying with Fig. And it was really because he let me keep the bar kind of low. But he told me some things that were things that I was never really truly paying attention to. Like how to not land a C-130 in a crab was, you looked at this cross beam from the window and you look at this cross beam from the windshield wiper, and eventually that draws a line down that's a little bit dead center to the left of your zipper. And that's how you can determine runway center line. And he taught me that. And then, we all have moments where someone taught you something that stuck, that you're just like, wow, that's really cool. And you get to pass those moments on. And that's one thing I always pass on to anyone that I fly with that's a new guy that lands in a crab or something. I said, "Hey, let me tell you the center line demonstration." And so I would land, and Fig always had this clever way of saying, "Woody, that was a really, really nice touchdown. Really, really nice approach and landing. Maybe just a little bit of a crab. Don't let it go to your head. There's plenty of room for improvement." And And I would always sit there and I'm like, God dang it, man, are you kidding me? That was like, if I was an airline pilot, like that was the smoothest landing ever. So we had some really, really great times. I think probably one of the biggest ones that stands out was when we flew up and I had the opportunity to sit in the left seat because I was just a co-pilot and I was in the left seat. And we had taken off out of our base in Kuwait and we were going up to a base in Jordan. And we were supposed to land there and then go to another base in Jordan, Amman, which was the actual international airport. And we took off and we're on our way up and we're going into the first base, which was a place that we hadn't been to. And weather forecast was marginal. And we're flying in and I'm just coming across the base and the ground controller calls us up. And he's like, hey, man, he's like, we're 0-0 down here. And I'm just like, all right. And Fig doesn't say anything. He's just like, all right, I'm just flying along. And we come screaming across. And I kind of rock the wings and look down as we get over the field. And you couldn't see anything. It was just red dust bowl. And it was a great lesson learned because Fig looked at me. He's like, well, I'll tell you what. He's like, we couldn't have landed there even if we wanted to, because he never slowed down to configure. And I was like, touche. I was like, you're right. Always 100% be ready to land if you've been told to do something. You know, in the airlines, you do that all the time. You take off, you're going to land. There is no, we're canceling because the weather's forecasted to be bad. You don't do that. You will take off and you will land at your destination. If you don't, then you're going to go somewhere else. And
you're always going to go. You're always going to go.
So that was one of the biggest, like this sortie was probably one of the bigger lessons learned, I feel like, as far as being a C-130 pilot that I truly had. And then, so now we're going over to Amman, and Amman was normally one way in and one way out. And if I'm not mistaken, it was 6 and 2-4 were the runways. And 2-4 was if you came in a high level, they wanted you to fly the full procedure ILS into land and runway 24. And that day in question, again, this weather system was all over the place. It had not forced us, but the only approach available was the ILS full procedure to 24, circle to runway 6. And there's terrain all over the place. And
there's houses on all the terrain.
There's houses everywhere. Like it is like I'm a new guy. I'm a first lieutenant. And I'm like, I'm not good at flying the airplane. You're lucky if I know where we're at. You know what I mean? Like I know the airfield is there, and if I don't know, I'm going to 120Y. I'm going to ask the engineer like, what's going on? I'm going to ask the navigator like, where the fuck are we? And we go over and we do the full procedure, come down and circle. And I'll never forget. I'm sure you remember this, Fig. You know, you look, and I mean, we're literally right there next to a whole bunch of terrain, houses, and whatnot, and roll out. And Fig's just kind of like, he doesn't say anything, which I think part of some of the great reasons of how we were able to fly so good was Fig only said something when it was getting egregious, which I tried to think that I didn't make anything too egregious. But I'm coming around and I roll out on final and I land and we touch down and we both kind of look at each other and I'll never forget that day of like, you do that stuff in the sim. Like, you don't do that every time. Like, that's not something that you do.
Hells no.
Hells no. You know what I mean? And if you're going to do it, you're going to do it in a sim and you're going to do it on 1 engine or 3 engines. Like, this was like, oh shit, like we have to do the full procedure. Like I have to remember how to time and whatnot. And so that's one of those huge moments in the C-130 that I remember that approach very, very vividly.
We got to wrap this up, but I want to tag team this story with you because I need a witness, and you're the witness, and you're going to tell it from your point of view.
And many a good war story was ruined by a witness.
Right.
So
that's right. But this is a really good war story. Tell the tale of the gun runners.
So
how did our crew become known as the Gun Runners.
Oh man. So out of where we were at in Aliasalim was, you called it the pain train, was first of all like go bang out 5 sorties and then come home. And that was the pain train. Otherwise, you went and did some stuff. And I think in this particular day in question, we took off out of Kuwait, and I believed we went to, I feel like it was Baghdad. Or maybe we went somewhere else. We went to Baghdad. And
well, so if I remember correctly, it was Salim, Baghdad, but we were going from Baghdad up to
Erbil,
which was,
right.
They didn't consider themselves part of Iraq.
Neutral place.
And so whenever we were going from Baghdad to there, a little colonel or general got on.
Yeah. So we had literally taken off from Kuwait. We land in Baghdad, and we had, we pick up some guys in Baghdad, Beards, SF, like, these guys that you see in the movies, you know what I mean? They're the guys
civilian
that
clothes.
Like
civilian clothes.
They're going to go do some stuff. You know what I mean?
These are the special operators.
They're the special operators. So they bring on this, ISU 90 internable slingable unit. 90, I don't know where the 90 comes from. Maybe it's because
doesn't matter. It's not important to the story. But what is important to the story is we had like 3 pallets worth of office furniture that we hauled up from Kuwait.
Office furniture.
Well,
it
even had pictures of chairs and desks and shit like that on the boxes of these 3 giant pallets. Yeah.
Okay.
The customs guy in Baghdad says, "I want to open one of these up." He opens it up. There's not a lot of office furniture in there. There's a couple pieces, maybe like a chair or 2, but in the back, there's optics. Like there are things that are in the back that this is not just all office furniture.
Maybe a pallet got swished somewhere. That's all.
That's what I'm
saying. That's what A1C Snuffy mixed it up in the yard or whatever. And so we close it up, and we're like, well, it doesn't matter. We're trucking on our way up to Erbil. So we take off and we head up to Erbil, and we land. And we did have a 2-star or something that came on, but I don't remember anything significant other than in that flight we landed. It wasn't until we got back that I recall.
No, we landed in Erbil, and
we landed in Erbil.
It was 2 a.m, and the loadmasters were unloading all the pallets. And you being a former loadmaster, I was doing my best to keep you away from the action because you kept.
Oh man, I was in regression.
So I said, "Come on, Woody, let's go get a cup of coffee," because we had shut down. Coffee. So as we're walking by this area where these guys had unloaded the pallets with the office furniture.
That's right.
And they had a big spotlight on it, generator with a big light. And as we walked by, they were cutting the boxes open, and there were miniguns, tripods.
That's
that
right.
They were taking and putting in the back of pickup trucks. Miniguns.
Well, office security is a big deal, gentlemen.
It wasn't office chairs. it wasn't desks. It was miniguns.
That's right.
So I snuck a picture as I was walking by on my phone. I snuck a picture. We went and got coffee. And then when we got back, the intel, when we did our debrief with intel, anything you say, no, we didn't see that. Although,
we didn't see shit.
It's funny. The office furniture we hold up there look a lot like miniguns when they open the boxes. What? So from then on out,
we were the gun runners.
Yes. We had patches made, so we
so even going to the store to get in the patches, so we went up to the clothing sales store, right? So this place that was making the patches, you could go in there with a PDF or something and they'd make you a patch. And we were like, we want a patch that just says Gun Runners. We want this rectangular patch in good black lettering that says Gun Runners. And they're like, okay, Gun Runner. Okay, we'll make that patch for you. Okay. Filipino, whatever, you get the gist. And so we came in, I think we just got bogged down flying so many missions that the patches were ready. And so we went into the patch store that day and we're like, we're here to pick up our patches. And they said, "Gun runner, you're late." And he hands us this patch of this bag of patches that all say gun runners on them. Oh God, that's right.
It. That's a picture of that. That's what we hauled. That's what we hauled boxes and boxes of those.
6-barrel Gatling gun. Nice.
Just shooting shit up. Yeah.
Yeah. And those guys with the beards that were in civilian clothes that I told you about. Yeah, that was for them.
That was for them.
That was their equipment.
They need to provide office security.
Yeah, office security. What do you mean PC lowlighter? What the fuck does that mean?
Yeah, right? Bullshit.
Yeah.
Well, Woody, it pains me to say this, but we got to cut you off, dude. We've been talking forever.
I tell you what, if it wasn't gonna be you, it'd be my now wife, previous girlfriend.
Keeper.
She's a keeper.
She's a keeper.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you, Woody, for your service, and thank you for spending 2 hours and almost 2 minutes with us. Because you could keep going. I know you could.
Yeah.
And so here's the deal. Like we tell all our guests, when you sign off today, you're going to think of 6 things you wish you would have talked about. So
sure.
Write down the bullets. Okay, write down the bullets.
I'll do that.
If it's worth it, shit, we'll have you back. How's that?
Yeah.
All right.
Only if it's worth it.
Only if it's worth it. Trust me.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'd like to have a salute to all of our military veterans and the families who support them in their mission,
including your wife, who's a keeper.
She's a keeper, bro. And by the way, today you are in support. I mean, you're being supported. So thank you.
That's right.
Indeed.
Well, I can't thank you guys enough for being here, man. That was really cool. It's just shoot the shit with everybody, and thank you.
Glad you are. So we also have a couple other thank yous we need to take care of here very, very quickly. We need to thank Dave Hamilton over at the Mac Geek Gab, the Gig Gab, and the Business Brain. Those are his shows. And he also runs a little outfit called Backbeat Media. So Backbeat Media handles our advertising online. So we appreciate that. Yeah.
Hey, we have a glossary. We've had a few terms I'm sure that was thrown out today. I think we tried to cover them all. If we didn't, let us know. We'll put it in the glossary. If you heard an acronym that you're not sure of, because aviation is full of acronyms.
That's what we do.
That's right. And we have a merch store, which, by the way, I was there last night buying merch, and I think I owe you some money, dude.
Oh, boy.
I know. Well, when it was time for checkout, it said it's on the way, and I'm like, I never put any form of payment in, so I think it was your form of payment.
There you go. So, I think it probably went off my credit card. Oh, boy. I see how it is.
I'm good for it. I'm good for it. But anyway,
I have a rough idea where you live.
Yeah, we do have a merch store, and by the way, it's spring. So if you've got a significant other that's got a beach-worthy body, we have a bikini.
Yeah, we do.
And it's pretty hot.
You can't buy half of it, though. You're going to have to buy the top and the bottom. So
it's nice.
Yeah.
But we got, if you don't have it on the merch store, it's probably not made.
Yeah. Need to also thank all the folks who've supported this show. I can't believe, Fig, we started talking about this just a little less than 2 years ago. And next thing you know, we're sitting here cranking out show 100. Blows 100. My mind. Yeah, 100. But we couldn't have gotten here from there. Yeah. We couldn't have gotten there without all the folks over at Patreon, at sotherewas.us/Patreon, and the folks that contribute via our website via sotherewas.us/donate. So either one of those places to help support us financially, because this is not free. This does cost a lot of money to put a podcast together with any sort of quality. We like to think we have a little bit of quality. And
what a shocker. I know.
Yeah, right. But we're only able to have that quality because of you, because all these things, a lot of subscriptions, a lot of hardware, all that stuff to edit the show and get it ready for you to listen to. It doesn't come free. You people have taken hard-earned money that's gone into your wallet, and you've taken out of your wallet and thrown it at us for some unknown reason. But we're humbled and grateful that you have. So thank you very much for doing that.
Yes, thank you. Sal Marinello, my brother, 5-time tactical aircraft commander.
Yeah.
And Chucker.
Chucker's in a league of his own. He's 7. At 7 now.
Yeah.
And
that's
climbing.
the Chucker level.
So, yeah. Hey. Got some great pictures on the website of Chucker in London this week. And including he was in a bobby hat. He was out in front of the palace, hanging out in the cockpit of an airliner. So,
he wanted to know if that was well, you fly the 777. However, he wasn't sure if that was configured the same way.
But it looked pretty much the same from what I could see. Although I don't know why that. I was looking out the windscreen at like a wall, and it looked, for some reason the aircraft looked smaller. So I guessed 7.5. I thought it was a light twin. It was a heavy twin. So
I fly the light twin.
There you go. So
hey, rate us, share, rate us, and share the show. You know, if you can't give us a 5-star rating, tell us what we can do to make it a 5-star rating, because we are trainable.
Indeed. And behind me on one of the cameras here, I've got up an image. Actually, that was done by Styx, but we've got some other images occasionally I use of some Harriers and several other images that have gone up on our website and into the shows have been through a guy by the name of Brad Silcott, and he's at BDSaviationphotography.com. That's Bravo Delta Sierra aviationphotography.com. Amazing stuff. Go check out his work. You will be impressed with
outstanding photos.
Yeah, absolutely. So, anyone else we should thank, Fig?
Well, before we get to those guys in the background, we got a guy in the background for us, and that's Styx. And Styx is truly an unsung hero so there I was. You know, he is the smartest guy in the room. Oh, there he is. He's the smartest guy in the room. Always. Unfortunately, he flew helicopters in the Coast Guard.
He may be smart, but he lacks judgment.
He's got poor judgment, but he is truly inspirational and a integral part of this whole operation. Thank you, Styx.
Indeed, Styx, thank you. I can't unmute you. If you'd like to come off mute there, say thank you and hello and all that good stuff. There we are. There's Styx.
It's great to be here. I'm so excited with us hitting 100 episodes. And 100? Yeah.
Is it crazy? Yeah.
Triple digits, baby. So if you hit the bell on YouTube, you will get notifications when we go live. So
there you go.
One more way to stay connected with us. Like, comment, subscribe. If you haven't, do me a favor, go check out YouTube. I did put a YouTube video up, sort of an instructional video. I'd love to get some comments and feedback on that, or future ideas if you have any. Okay.
Yeah, it was actually really good. It was talking about stalling the aircraft and aerodynamics. Pretty cool stuff.
I'm sorry I haven't got back to you yet, Styx.
That's all good. You're busy,
nice.
We're all busy.
Nice.
And listen, there's somebody else we need to throw a shout out to.
Bago.
That's our man Bago.
Bago showed up halfway through the show. He was doing that work thing. I guess this podcasting thing is interfering with his work life.
Stupid gets in front of. Bago is part of our team, and he runs our Facebook page, and is also a former Marine, constant leader, inspiration. And he says to the fact that Styx is our brains. He says, he's all brain, no logic. So
there you go.
There's some to that too.
And thanks. I haven't looked at who's listening and who's not today. I did catch Marcus Ponte in there, so thank you, Marcus. And to your son Sebi, whose winter coat is one of our hoodies. So
Sebi.
Great piece of gear. Yes, Sebi. So. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We're well over 5,000 a week now. Share it with 2 of your friends. Every one of you listening, please share the show with 2 of your friends. We might get to 10,000 soon.
Hey, by the way, That sound you hear in the background, that's the two F-16 pilots that make the Air Force sound good. That's the Dos Gringos.
Count up 2.
and they got 4 albums out, and not a one of them has a bad song. And Woody needs to listen to the Ballad of Thunderbird number 2 when he talks about Flying Fingertip.
There you go. All right, everybody. Until next week, thanks for getting us to 100. Let's do 100 more. Stay safe and check 6.
Check 6.
100 more. 100 more.
Well, there I was, crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fond of all the shit I was wearing on that day. Now an F-16 is cramped enough, but it's even worse with all that stuff supposed to save your life. But we knew there was no way. 'Cause when you're going down the North Atlantic, man, it's over.
It's what?
He said it's over.
Oh man. It ain't over. We're going to do 100 more, but was the first 100 perfect? I say.
Mistakes were made.
Did we give up when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor?
No! They took the bar!
Was it on
the fucking bar?
Oh boy, is this great!
All right. And we are out.
Woo!
All right, gents. Let's kill this thing so I can get uploaded and get some chow in me. Thank you, everybody watching online. We can't tell you how much we appreciate it. We love you. We appreciate your support. This has been too cool. Yeah.
Way cool. Yeah. Hey, don't log off, Woody. We got to wait until it all uploads.
And we're going to end the stream now.
Man. Don't let your kitchen sink.
There you
go. Don't do it.
Ta-ta, everybody.
See